And so I would say this is not something that is a byproduct of flooding. Flooding is the straw that broke the camel's back. This is a decades-in-the-making problem with deferred maintenance on a system. It's a decades-in-the-making problem with failure to actually bill for water, which means there's insufficient funds to maintain the system.
Agree.
And it's a failure in terms of staffing. O.B. Curtis is not that old of a facility. It really isn't. I think it's 20 years old, give or take.
Right.
We just have inadequate staffing. In fact, the EPA has said that we have inadequate qualified staffing to run the thing. So all of those are real sort of long-term problems that have to be addressed if you want to fix it. I'd look at it, though, and say this, that there are numbers floating around that people have thrown out about what it would take to fix it. Nobody knows, because the analysis that's required to really know what is wrong with the system has not been done.
And it costs money to do the analysis.
And it does cost money. But I also know that the city of Jackson got $42 million in American Rescue Plan Act money, which they are allowed to use for water infrastructure.
Right.
I know that Hinds County got $45 million directly, their portion. And you look at that, and you're talking about $87 million that could immediately be applied to the problem. And then you realize the state opened up their ARPA money to matching. So if Jackson and Hinds County decide to put all $87 million up into the state's matching program, we're talking about $174 million in quick access that can be used to fix O.B. Curtis, to fix the meter system, because after all of this, we still don't have a system that really works for billing in Jackson. You look at all of that and you go, that's a real start. And so even if you accept some of the ridiculous numbers that are floating around, it would cost $2 billion to replace the entire system sort of thing. You got to realize that it's better to spend $174 million now to get water back to people immediately. Take one bite at the elephant, and then we can talk about what a long-term plan looks like to finish eating the elephant.
Yeah, I mean, we at least got to get back to a point where we have functioning flow of potable water. I mean, that's the problem we have right now, and you can't have economic activity without that.
Yeah.
And you can't produce revenue without economic activity. So it's a huge old catch-22, but we got to at least get back to that.
Well, it becomes a death spiral, right? To your point, if business goes out of Jackson, then employment goes out of Jackson, and your tax base gets smaller and smaller, so your ability to actually address these things gets harder and harder. I do think at some level it's worth considering the idea that, one, some of the problems that Jackson's facing are not wholly Jackson, in the sense that geographically the reservoir and the Pearl River contribute to some of the issues that they deal with.
Agree.
And those are, those come through communities that are not Jackson. So in a degree, it is a regional question. And then the system itself is not limited to Jackson proper, right? Certainly there are services that are offered as far north as Ridgeland with sewage. And there's water service that's offered all the way down to Byram.
Right.
So you look at that and go, well, perhaps the right approach to this is something similar to what Haley Barbour did post-Katrina, with a regional utility district that allows people who have a stake in the game in the area to have a voice in how resources get spent to fix the problem, recognizing that the impact of the problem extends beyond Jackson proper.
Yep.